Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Reading Solutions UK. Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Join the free online International Reading Conference on the 11th, 12th and 13th of June. Hear from speakers like TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui, beloved children's author Michael Rosen, fluency expert Tim Rosinski, EEF specialist Chloe Butlin, the National Literacy Trust's Irene Picton, and a range of experienced practitioners, including MAT leaders, deputy heads, heads of English, high-level teaching assistants, and school librarians. Through the three-day conference, speakers will explore a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Visit Reading Solutions at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk for more information and to sign up for this free conference.
Good evening. Welcome to TTR on this Monday evening. Thank you for joining us, those people who've already arrived and those people who will. This is one of our shows on TTR. You can listen to lots of them. We have them every evening here, live via the Teachers Talk Radio website, ttradio.org. You can listen to them there, or you can listen to them on playback via Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from. Make sure you subscribe to Teachers Talk Radio and get involved that way. Really excited for the conversation this evening. It's all around radical things that schools are doing to try to solve the recruitment and retention crisis themselves. So tactics, strategies, tools, provisions, things that schools are doing to try and make things better. Now, of course, later on in the show, I will discuss whether that should be coming from central government, perhaps, more so than individual schools. You know, are we relying too much on individual schools or individual academy chains or even individual teachers and leaders to create things themselves? Should these innovations be coming from government? That's a question that I'm sure I'll ask later on. Just 3 days ago, the Education Select Committee published a report on teacher recruitment, training and retention. And later on in the show, I would like to explore some of their findings. They talked about bursaries to boost recruitment. They talked about retention payments. They talked about pay increases. They talked about help for career switchers, attracting teachers from abroad, which is all, again, that stirred some controversy I've seen. They've talked about pupil behaviour. They've talked about lots of things, but what I was most interested to do tonight was to explore one particular school, and they're not the only school doing this, but certainly they're a school that I've seen doing it, and I've been intrigued to know more. I've had lots of questions, and that's Dixon's. And I'm going to be joined in a moment, hopefully, by Joel, and hopefully, Nathan, you can invite Joel in. But Joel is going to hopefully talk to us this evening about his experience as a head of science at Dixon's and how he has benefited from an approach by Dixon's, which means that all the teachers in the school work one less day every 2 weeks. They essentially work a 9-day fortnight. And this was outlined by the Dixon's CEO, Luke Sparks, who's actually in the space. Good evening to you, Luke. Or was, I don't know if he is now. Yes, he is. Oh, no, he's not. No, he's not. But the Dixon's CEO, Luke Sparks, explained this in January when he said that there were several reasons why Dixon's had decided to do this. Notably, it was about teacher well-being, teacher workload, giving teachers more autonomy, more options, more possibilities with their time, the opportunity to essentially spend the day on what they wanted. And he reinforced in this statement that this was not to the detriment of the teacher in terms of cramming everything into the other 9 days, which I think was an interesting point, which I'll explore with Joel this evening. Just before I introduce Joel and get started with Joel asking him the questions, I would like to draw your attention and give a big shout out to our two sponsors this evening. We've got John Catt Education. Now, if you're interested in getting a discount with John Catt, you can do so via Teachers Talk Radio by using our discount code, which is TTR2425. JC TTR 2425. If you input that code on the John Catt website, you can get yourselves 20% off. It doesn't matter how much you order on the website. You can do a bulk order and you can get 20% off by using the coupon code JCTTR2425. So that's John Catt. We really appreciate them supporting all our shows on TTR, long-time supporters of TTR. And we also have Reading Solutions UK. If you haven't heard of Reading Solutions UK, you can visit them at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk. They have a conference coming up on the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th of June. It's completely free. And they have a range of fantastic speakers like Michael Rosen and Irene Picton and many, many more, exploring a range of topics on the education landscape. And you can pick up free tickets for that at their website, readingsolutions.co.uk. I'll refer back to our two wonderful sponsors later on in the show. But Joel, how are you this evening?
Hello, Tom. I'm good, thank you. And how are you?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for joining me tonight to discuss this very interesting topic, which is the 9-day fortnight. And before we get into that, do you want to just give everybody a bit of an introduction to you, who you are, what you do, and your sort of story in education?
Yes, so I've been a teacher for the last 7 years. I used to work in South Liverpool. I then moved to London as a teacher of science, worked in Southall and Ealing
You're a traitor,
in West
Joel.
London.
You're a traitor. You're a traitor.
I know, but I've recently just moved back.
Oh, well, you're not a traitor anymore.
No, I'm not. So I've recently just moved back, so I'm now back in North Liverpool, which is where I've joined my current school, and I am the head of science. Mainly what my general philosophy is just trying to bring in as much from the outside world for pupils to understand science a little bit better. Sometimes I think we are quite restrained by the curriculum, especially considering how massive it is. But I also want teachers to have stories and hinterland things that they can bring in. So I try to highlight some of them stories on my website, and that's about me, really.
Brilliant. And of course, if you want to find out more about Joel, and if you're live in the space, you can just click follow. But if you're listening back to this as a podcast, he's on X at Joel120193. What a catchy username, Joel.
I know, if you couldn't guess, it is my date of birth.
Brilliant. Well, anyway, let's kick off then, Joel. So you work, where do you, I mean, if you don't mind, say where you work. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but where is it you actually work now? You don't have to
So I work in Dixon's Croxteth in North Liverpool.
Brilliant. Okay, so, and how long have you been there for in that school?
So I joined in September.
Okay, so, and the policy of the 9-day fortnight, has that been introduced there already? Is that present now this year, or is that coming in September?
So it's a new policy. They've trialled it in some of their other schools, and it's going to be full across as many schools as possible in September, including mine.
Okay, so they've trialled it across other schools within the trust, but in yours, it's going to start from September.
Yeah.
Got you. Now, talk us through your current timetable, Joel. Talk me through that in terms of, and give me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Just give me a thing of, right, Monday. I mean, how many lessons do you have in the day for a start? Do you have?
So we
6?
have 6 on a Monday to Wednesday. We have 5 lessons on a Thursday plus 1 CPD session where there's no pupils in the school, and then we have 5 lessons on a Friday because we finish early.
What time do you finish on a Friday then? Not
2:30.
Oh, that's not bad. Okay.
No, it's not at all. No.
Okay.
Which will be staying. That same thing where we finish at 2:30 on a Friday and have the CPD session on a Thursday is staying even with the 9-day fortnight as well.
Because I mean, we'll come on to the logistics of it, because I watched the video, and again, I'm guessing it's different in each school, but I watched the video from the timetabler at one of your schools, and she was saying that they originally wanted to introduce it on any day, Monday to Friday, but am I right in saying that it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when you can take the day, or is it any day?
So it's different in different schools depending on how their timetable is arranged. So some schools have their CPD sessions on a Wednesday or have their CPD sessions on a Thursday. So because ours is on a Thursday, you take your day off as a box standard teacher Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday.
Got you. So basically, depending on when a school within this academy chain has a CPD afternoon, that's the day that's almost protected, where teachers have to be there. And then, so in your school, that's going to be Thursday. So why not the Friday as well? Why not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday as the day off option? Why just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
So there is going to be some people who do have the Friday off. This obviously is going to sound a contentious point, but it's some members of SLT will be off on that Friday. But the main reason why is because that's such a shorter day. It was seemed more fair that the days off were shared on the days that we're in for longer. So because we're in 6 periods, because we start at 8:20 and we're in for 6 periods, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, it would seem fairer that they get them days off. And some members of SLT get that Friday off. It was just, again, an issue. So let's say if we had the majority of staff would be off. So for us, it'd be like, let's say 6 members of staff off on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. On the Friday, we want to try and limit if a member of SLT is gone. So if a member of SLT is not there on the Friday, we still have every single other member of the staff body on that Friday, if that makes sense.
No, I understand. You're basically saying, I suppose it's a bit harder on SLT, I guess, in a way, but I guess because they've got a reduced teaching load anyway, I get exactly what you're saying. On a Friday, you basically want people who have a significantly reduced teacher load to take a Friday off, but basically is what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's one of that. So I don't know what day our principal has off, but let's say our principal has off the Friday. That makes less of an impact if he's not there on one Friday a fortnight, if every other member of staff is in.
Do you think your principal is genuinely going to take that day off?
Yeah, so this is kind of one of them things. I asked this, I said, because it's all members of SLT and all members of teaching staff that have this day off. So I asked them, like, are you going to take it? And they were like, no, we want to demonstrate that this is a policy for everybody. So the focus from the trust is that we need to make sure that we're modeling that behaviour. We want to make sure that staff do genuinely have a day off. And it's not just for teaching staff, but it's for absolutely everybody who teaches. So that's kind of been the main focus, is they've wanted to make sure that it's everyone from the top down who gets that off. And I think it's just one of them. If the head teacher can demonstrate that he can manage all of his days in the 9 days that he's in, and manage that work and have that extra day off, it just sends that message to other members of staff to go, no, you can actually enjoy that day off. You're not expected to work 10 days. You're only expected to work 9.
I'm a cynic, though, Joel. I'm a cynic, and I think the head would work from home. But that's because I'm a cynic.
Yeah. So mainly even I'm going to find it difficult to have that day off. Mainly because you do the extra bit of work that you do on a Sunday before the week starts. I can now shift that to my day off. So I can now do that on my day off. So I genuinely have my weekend. So when you have conversations with many teachers, they say, oh, I lose some of my weekend due to marking, or it's exam season, so I've got marking to do, or I've got this or that.
Yeah.
So I end up working on the weekend. But now you've actually got one dedicated day to do all of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, of course, again, the cynic in me would ask, will this lead to a culture of, well, I'm going to do more work than the other person on my day off to then get ahead of other, you know what I'm saying? Like this race to be more productive. Will that stop because you've got the extra day off, or will that mean that people just spend an extra day working? they'll
Yeah,
spend
so that
the
that
extra
one
day
day is a
working.
work from home type thing. Yeah. When I've had conversations with staff across multiple schools in the trust, they've said that they're hoping that what it does is motivate them more when they're in the building, so they are more productive when they're in the building. Just to make sure that they do genuinely have that day off. And a lot of them have said,
Yeah,
I am going to treat that like it's a day off. It's a weekend. I'm going to treat that as if it's a Wednesday, my midday break, where I go shopping and I don't have to queue around, or I
yeah,
can book a doctor's appointment and all that type of stuff.
yeah.
That is suddenly
Yeah, I
now
mean,
been opened up to us.
we'll come on to the benefits in a bit, in terms of the potential benefits. But I wanted to ask you now then. So this is going to be introduced for you in September. So just thinking about now for you, can you talk me through Monday to Wednesday? Have you got your timetable in front of you?
Not my finished timetable, because you can imagine that
No,
this
no, I
has
don't mean for
been a
September. I mean
massive undertaking.
no,
Oh,
I
the
mean your
timetable now,
timetable
yeah, yeah,
now, the one you've
yes,
got now, right?
yeah.
So if you can just talk me through Monday to Wednesday on that timetable, including your PPAs, in terms of what you teach, if
Okay.
possible,
So just bear in mind, I have a lower load just because I'm the head of
as the head
science.
of
But
department. Yeah.
yeah. So for Monday, we have a morning meeting every morning. So that's 20 minutes every single morning, with every single year group, a meeting with their form tutors and their head of year. So that's at the very beginning of the day.
Is that just for
Then
you, or is that for all staff? Is that for
so
you as
that's
the head of the department?
no, so that's absolutely everyone. So all it's called the morning meeting. It's an artifact that we have across the majority of our schools, where it's essentially an assembly, but every single day.
Okay. And when does that kick off?
So that starts at 20 past 8.
Okay. And that lasts for 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah.
Okay. And so is that, so are all staff in clusters? Is that literally all staff? It's like a briefing.
No, so it's the pupils are there. So it's
Okay. All right. So it's like a pupil
yeah.
assembly. Sorry, I didn't understand that. Right. Okay.
No. So yeah, it's an assembly for everyone. So all the form tutors are there. So it's one of them. If again someone mentioned, "Oh, what do you do about form time?" Because all of the form tutors are there. If one of them is off, it doesn't actually cause that much damage. Does that
Got
make
you.
sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah. So period 1, I have year 7. Period 2 on Monday, I have PPA. Period 3, I have an on tour, which is where we go around the school and we make sure if there's any issues with pupils, we take them out. We have conversations, we monitor the hallways, etc. Period 4, I have year 10. We have a tutor session halfway through the day. That is half an hour long. So I have a year 11 tutor group. So with exams, we're just going through revision in that half an hour with the whole year group. For period 5, I've got year 8, and then period 6, I have a free. Tuesday, year 11, on tour, year 7, free. Tutor time, year 8, on tour.
What's
And
that
then
on tour?
Wednesday,
How do you
so
call
on
it?
tour, so we call it
On
on tour, but loads of people have different names. We don't have walkie-talkies, but I call the walkie-talkie job. So
Yeah.
it's where you go round to make sure that all the pupils are in lessons. You pop your head in to make sure
Yeah.
everything's okay, and mop up any pupils that aren't necessarily behaving in the correct way.
Got you.
Okay.
Okay.
So then Wednesday I have year 8, then year 11, then I have a line management meeting, year 10, a tutor time. I have a dedicated faculty time, which is where I meet with the science department, and then year 11 again.
So is that the dedicated faculty time? Is that within the timetable? Is that built in as well?
Yes, so every single week I meet with my department.
And is that in addition to PPA as it stands now?
So it's treated like it's a lesson.
That's really good.
Isn't it?
Okay.
Isn't it really good?
Yeah, no, well, I think it is. I mean, I've never worked in a school where a a departmental meeting or a faculty meeting would be built into the school day as a lesson. I don't think I've worked in one. No, I haven't. I don't think I have. Even the really sort of I was going to say progressive schools I've worked in, but yeah, even the best schools I've worked in, I don't think they've had that. So,
So it's one. So that's my favorite one of my favourite things about where I work is that dedicated time, and it's not after school; it's built into the timetable. So it's like it's a lesson. It's great.
Yeah. So I mean, timetable. What? I'm just trying to think of the timetable. It's quite a challenge, though, isn't it, to get? Because presumably the science. How many staff are in your science faculty?
So we're only small. Our school is only small, so there's only 6 of us.
Okay, but that's still a challenge, isn't it, to get 6 staff
Yeah.
in that meeting at the same time free.
So that would just then be on one of the days where all of you are in. So you're out by department. So let's say we have a Monday off. It'll be all science teachers off on that Monday. So then all of the other science teachers are in the other 9 days.
Oh, I see. Okay. So right. So when this starts in September, the 9-day fortnight, you're saying that you as a department choose the day.
Well, we get given it, but yeah, the department choose the day. So it's a timetabled day off. So it's given to us. We don't choose.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So coming back to what we said earlier, that day that you're given for your department or faculty could be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, and you're given one of those days off. Right.
Yes.
Got you. Okay. So the reason I asked you about your timetable now is, and you did mention this in the thread that you put on your Twitter account about it, but your PPA is still protected from September.
It is, yeah.
So have you worked out in terms, because you've already got, is that faculty meeting protected?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I'm trying to work out how many lessons you have off, like actual lessons, not days. I'm trying to work out how many actual lessons you will have off in September over 2 weeks. That's what I'm trying to work out.
I would have 6, and then a normal teacher would have 6 plus 5, so it's 11 periods off.
So you're gonna have 11. And how long are those? Does that vary on Thursday, Friday because it's a reduced day, or are they always the same time in the lessons? Is it an hour or what?
Yeah, so they're always 55 minutes, although next year it'll be an hour.
Okay, so essentially you're getting 11 hours off over.
Yeah, so essentially, if you treat it like it's 11 hours of PPA, but 6 of them are bunched together on one day, and you take that day off.
Got you. Now, is that your PPA, or is that like, are you imagining that as like a normal classroom teacher, or are you imagining that as a head of faculty?
So that's just as a normal teacher.
Okay, so are you getting more than that, you as a head of science?
Yes, so I get an additional. Oh God, I've got to think now. I get an additional 4 or 3 or 4.
Okay, brilliant. All right. So you're getting, as a head of department / faculty, you're potentially getting like 15 hours off over the 2 weeks.
Yes, 6 of them on one day.
Yeah, with 6 of them on the one day. Okay. I mean, by the way, if anybody from Dixon's who in a leadership role is on and wants to call in, if there is anybody out there who is, then do so, because I'm going to ask you, Joel, but you might not know the full picture or the full answers on it, or even any head teachers who are looking at doing this, who are already in that planning process. Please feel free to call in and get involved in the conversation. That actually applies to anybody who's listening. We've got an absolute ton of people listening. So if anybody wants to get involved in the chat, you just have to click the little icon in the bottom left-hand side if you're listening through X. If you're not listening through X, you can't call in, but you can listen to this, obviously, live and as a podcast. But if you're here now, you can actually call in and get involved in the conversation if you have an opinion on any of this. But what I was going to ask you is, how is your school funding it?
So I asked this question, and if you go on to the press releases and all that type of stuff from the trust and from the CEO himself, mainly the focus of where the money goes has been placed more onto staff. So more of the money that goes into the coffers, so to say, is spent on staff. So it's just about directing that money more towards the staff to make sure that they stay, they have a good work-life balance type thing. So they've made that their priority, to So again, if that is a choice that they've made, and obviously I welcome it. But I can understand how it can be difficult for other schools to also afford it.
But where was that going before? Is what I'm asking. Like, where was that going? Where was that money going before?
So it's not that. So we've got wiggle room within our timetable because we've got more. I've got a slightly extra freeze, and some teachers have slightly extra freeze than they're supposed to. So they've got extra PPAs or extra freeze, and then that's essentially all been bunched together. So some members of staff within our school have, instead of 3 freeze a week, they've got four. They've got 4 or 5. So then they haven't lost any member of staff. They haven't lost any money with that. So it's not necessarily the money's been spent somewhere; it's being spent somewhere else. But they're also looking at how groupings work. So yes, we still have normal average size classes. So Grant and I do work in a small school, so our class size are about 25, about 25-ish.
Yeah.
Because our classes are quite small. But some of them, we call it Big Teach, which is where, let's say you have an assessment that you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So for example, in maths, they do an assessment every Friday, and then they can do that in something called Big Teach, which is where they're all in the same room together.
Yes.
They're all in the hall, and then they're not necessarily taught. They can be taught, but they're not necessarily taught. But they all do that assessment together. So then you freed up members of staff in that time.
And
Because
is that
instead of
happening?
having
Is that happening already, or is that going to happen from September?
So some schools do already implement Big Teach already as a way to manage hours in the timetable, but we only have it in maths currently now. But I don't know what's going to happen next year, but I imagine that there will be more of them Big Teachers, not an overwhelming
Because
amount, just
I
a small
think
amount.
I've written, and this is my personal view. I like many years ago in 2016, I wrote an article which was basically the future of education, and it was a bit sort of controversial at the time. But this was like, remember, this was like before COVID, right? This was before any of the sort of remote working stuff and all this. And one of the things I said in there was about this idea of grouping students together in a larger space to free up other staff from exactly what you've just said, basically. And
Yeah,
I would welcome any other views out there. If anybody wants to tweet even their view on this, then that's fine. But I'd be interested to hear, because I personally think that can be quite healthy. There will be critics who will say, well, that's depersonalizing it, or that's sort of just lumping everybody in the same space and you're not really teaching them and it's a lesson, whatever. But if,
yeah,
for example, you've got what you just said, which is essentially like a revision lesson or an assessment lesson or something where they're all, for the vast majority of the lesson, in silence doing something, then my question to everyone would be is what is the harm in having, I mean, how many students are in there, Joel? I mean, in my example years ago, I said there might be like 90 or something, or 100. I don't know how many classes you put together, but
So we only have, so again, we're a small school, I keep on saying
yeah,
that, but we have, our max is per year group is 120.
yeah. So are you
So
saying
we'd
like
have
in one of those
120
big,
kids.
yeah, so in one of those big so-called big teach lessons, you might have an absolute maximum of 120 together
Yes.
in like the hall or something?
Yeah.
Because that's what I was going to ask, like what space do you use for that? But I'm presuming the hall or the
Yeah,
lobby
so
space.
we've got loads of, like, our school's quite old, so it's got loads of space for some bizarre
I
reason.
love
So
old
we've got,
schools.
I know, so we have a massive hall that has the seats to pull out and stuff, and then we have our sports hall as well. So we've got 2 massive spaces that if you wanted to have it, you could have it in there, but we mainly use the hall.
Okay, so let's, in a second, Joel, I want to dig into you because you've written a number of things about what the benefits of this thing might be. And obviously, there might be other teachers out there who've already been part of this 9-day working week. And you've mentioned things like, well, do you know what? We won't unveil to everyone what you've said. I mean, obviously, they may have seen it on Twitter already, but if someone's listening, we have lots of international listeners, so people out there might not have a clue what we're talking about here on X. So Joel's going to run through some of his thinking as to why he thinks this will be beneficial for him in September. Just before we do that, another big shout out to our sponsors tonight, which is John Catt and Reading Solutions UK. If you want to find out more, we've pinned A couple of tweets at the top of the space. If you want to get your 20% off all John Catt titles, you can click it. If you want to sign up for the free Reading Solutions UK conference, if you're into reading, then that is the conference to sign up for, completely free. It's in June, and you can sign up at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk, and you can sign up on the page that's called Reading Plus. So definitely get involved in that. But Joel, I wanted to ask, what do you see as your top benefits for this, for you as a professional? What are you most looking forward to in this? And presumably you've spoke to lots of other staff about this as well, so in your school. So what sort of things are they saying as well?
So my main one is just being able to, this is going to sound ridiculous, but mainly to do daily admin tasks of my life. So doctor's appointments, that was the first thing that come into my head, because I recently had just had a complete nightmare to get a doctor's appointment. But a doctor's appointment is a nice and easy one, because again, we'd be off, so we could schedule that doctor's appointment for that day. But we also had, mainly it's my complete well-being. So I've worked in a number of schools, and I've spoke to a number of people, and because I've been in schools for 7 years, I've seen the reasons as to why people have left. So in previous schools I've worked in, there's just been people who've gone, I can't do it. It's the rigidness. It's all of my stuff being in these 6 hours, and me having to get everything done in them 6 hours is just too much, and people being forced to work on the weekends and mark and etc. And for me, it's just about having an extra day that if I do have them life admin tasks, or I've got a bit where my work is suddenly getting overwhelming, I have that time to do that. I have extra time to be able to have a weekend as my actual weekend, instead of my time being spent on life admin or anything like that. I'm currently trying to renovate a house, and trying to renovate a house when you work Monday to Friday, 8 till around 4 o'clock, is impossible. So it's about having that day where I can get stuff delivered to the house, and I can do some extra things when the timber yard is open. It's all of them small little things that I don't actually think I'll fully appreciate until at least December, is when I'll just start to appreciate the fact that I've got that extra time to be able to do life admin that is usually just taken up by me on a Sunday. That is the main thing that I'm going to take away. And when you speak to other people, they say, well, now I'm going to find it really difficult to leave. I'm going to find it really difficult to go to a different school where they don't have the 9-day fortnight, because I'm suddenly going to have to work 10 days and teach over 10 days, and it's going to be the same amount of work. Sometimes it may possibly be even more, because I now don't have them extra 6 frees in a fortnight. So it's one of them. I think it's such a genius idea, because it keeps people working in a very happy place where their well-being is actually appreciated. And that's just it's because obviously it's sometimes difficult to feel appreciated as a teacher, but this initiative is just one of them where you genuinely do feel appreciated, because they don't have to do this. And I think that's one thing that is missing. They don't have to do this. This is a choice that they've made that does have cost implications, that does have headaches in terms of timetabling, but they've made that decision on the basis of the fact that they want to keep their staff, and they want to keep their staff happy. And a lot of people, especially where I work, and granted we are only a small school, so we don't actually have that much of a staff body, but they just say, I just can't believe that they've done it, because we didn't expect it. So when I joined in September, this was not on the cards. I didn't even know it was happening. It was when I got to the start, about February, there was musings about a 95% timetable, and then the news came out from Dixon's where they were going to say, right, we're going to work towards a 90%. And then just because of the positive traction that they've had, it's now been a focus and a goal of the trust to make sure that's for everyone. And it is just that thing, if they are prioritising their teachers first, because we are probably the most expensive part of teaching, but we do work really hard, and we do sacrifice a lot of our time with family members, and we do sacrifice our time on weekends to catch up with stuff that we've missed out on during the week, and we do sacrifice our half terms to do extra work, or to do the stuff that we didn't have the time to do in the week. And this is just one of them things that is just shows their appreciation for us as staff.
Yeah. I mean, just to throw this around as well, we'll talk more about those benefits because you mentioned a few interesting points, like, for example, about family time. I think that's, for people who have families and stuff, it would probably be very beneficial for them, I would imagine. But one of the things I wanted to throw in was, though, that you've said rightly that this, you found out about it and you were sort of, oh my goodness, we're going for this, it's happening, we've got this extra day off. Is it a sign of how far away England is? Even if you look at Scotland, someone's actually tweeted this. So someone has actually replied with, a lot of ideas I see mentioned have been common in Scottish schools for decades. Edinburgh schools have had half days every Friday for years. I was aware of that. I don't know if you were, Joel, but I was already aware of that.
Yeah.
And even with 1/10 off, it's still less PPA time than we get here.
Yeah, they have increased PPA than we do in Scotland.
Right, okay. The Macron Agreement was 24 years ago. It's bonkers England is so far behind. So that's Scotland. But also, if you look at a country like, for example, Japan, Japan has one of the longest working hours. So they have like an average of 56 hours per week where a teacher is in the school. However, 18 hours of that time is spent in the classroom.
Yeah.
So that would equate to, where are we going here? We're going for about 37 hours of non-contact time. Let's say 35, just to be sort of, conservative. So they're getting double, let's say, at least double
Than what we get.
Than what you're getting after these changes. Now, obviously, every country will do things differently, and I'm not, it would be silly to directly compare sort of Japan with England or whatever, because there's lots of different contextual factors. But it's interesting that your school sort of doing this, because do you think this is going to lead to, I suppose the question I'm asking is, should the government be doing this? Should this be coming from government? Because there'll be lots of teachers listening to this who have, and the narrative has very much been about teacher pay in the last 4 or 5 years. Is this a change from that? Is this saying, actually, you've talked about the reaction of staff. You've talked about your own personal reaction to this.
Yeah.
Is there something in that to say, hang on a minute, do we need to, I'm not saying completely move away from pay, I'm not saying that, but is there an argument there to say we need to pay a little bit more attention to time rather than pay?
Yeah, so I think it's statistics from the OECD during they do their PISA assessments and stuff like that, where teachers in England do work significantly more hours of contact time than in many other schools across the world.
Yeah.
And that I do see is a negative. That is a negative. It is something that we should be working away from. I get your point when you say, should this be government? I have my own opinions on the government, but it's clear that the focus for government has not been on teacher well-being. They do have their task force and they do have their guidelines on teacher well-being and reducing teacher workload, but the first teacher workload assessment came out in like 2017 and it just hasn't worked. The measures that they've taken has not worked. The increase in bursaries has not worked. It does boost the numbers slightly, but even in the report from the DFE yesterday, it did say that, well, on Friday, it does say that it is hampering other subjects. So yes, you are getting a boost in biology teachers, but you're suffering in your recruitment of English teachers, for example, because they aren't valued because of it. So it does seem to be that this responsibility of teacher wellbeing has now fell to individual trusts and individual schools, and it just seems that they care significantly more about their staff than the government do. And I can be as frank about that as possible, because yes, the argument has been towards pay. Pay is just a very easy way to go, look, you are valued. It's a very easy tick box way of saying, if we pay you well and we pay you similar to what with the graduates in in your field get, then we value you. But it's not just that. It isn't just that, because we've had increases in pay, and granted they could be better. We've had our increases in pay, and they just don't seem to be translating into people staying long term. So clearly the plan is to it's necessary to do something else. And I do think trusts like mine, and granted we aren't the only ones, there's half day Fridays, early starts, early finishes, flexi time where some of your PPA is in the morning and you're not expected to come in the morning. That type of stuff is stuff that trusts have been doing. I do think it needs a large scale change for the government, where the government we are going to increase the amount of non-contact time that teachers have. It's clear that because teachers do a lot of work on the weekend, that they can't do the job in the hours that they're given. I've seen a lot of musings about the 1, 2, 6, 5 hours being removed and stuff like that. I don't necessarily think that's the right path. I think it is just about increasing the amount of non-contact time, but that does come with a massive cost. Granted, we have the trust that I'm in is around about 20-ish schools. I've forgot the number off the top of my head. I do apologise. We're about 20-ish schools, but if you multiply them extra PPA across the entire country, it's billions of pounds that would have to come from somewhere. And I do welcome initiatives that the government do have. I do think the bursaries are really good. And if you work just outside a city in a highly deprived area, then you don't have to pay your student loans back. So in Knowsley, where I used to work, I didn't pay my student loans. I got it paid back to me. And I do think that's one of the benefits that a lot of people don't know about, but they're just not working. It needs something else. And I do think it needs a radical change. And giving people an extra day off is just one of them radical changes. But the problem is it shouldn't necessarily be up to individual trusts. I welcome individual trusts doing it. It's genuinely amazing. But from the comments that I've had on that post and the messages that I've had, people are jealous. They are. And I understand that. I really do understand that people saying, "Oh, I wish I had this at my school," or like people have been saying, "Do you have vacancies?" and stuff like that. That shouldn't be the attitude towards it. The attitude toward it shouldn't be, "Oh, it's us. It's this trust against that trust."
Yeah.
What it should be is going, "Look, this is a model that we use. We're going to see if it works. Use us as a baseline to see if you can implement it in the future." That's what it should be. And I do hope that a lot of schools across the country do look at it and see and genuinely try. It takes a lot of effort. I really do welcome the timetable officer who's been going around to schools, making sure that they can do it. It is a lot of work, and granted, we're a large trust that can leverage that. But I do think more schools can do it if they do try it. But that's a temporary fix. That is the individual schools seeing if they can do it is a temporary fix. I do think it needs a whole scale change from government about increasing our hours and allowing for more flexi time by increasing budgets for staff. So there's some of my musings.
Yeah. I'm guessing you don't know the figures in terms of how much it has costed extra.
No, I do not know.
Yeah.
No.
But like, presumably though, if because I didn't realize when I looked at it that it was the whole of your department off on that given day, which does I suppose mean there are no science lessons on a Monday, for example, which means that there is a bit, it's not as crazy as if every single person in your department had a different day off that they'd selected off, because that would then have massive like cover implications, wouldn't it? Because basically what you're saying to the timetabler is you can put science in any day apart from Monday.
So essentially each department has a block off. So a lot of people were saying, "Oh, but who's going to cover them lessons?" No one, because there is no lessons to cover.
That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, like, cover wise, you can probably, like, this is why I'm saying there are a lot of schools out there who can probably, like, obviously there would be an extra cost, but it might not be as significant as what you might think if you are blocking departments and faculties out in particular days.
Yeah.
Right? Because there be more opportunity for a timetabler to work some magic and try to make that work in a way that was less costly as it might be. Possibly. And just going back to the report that came out on Friday that you alluded to, the first three things that they mention in this report are bursaries to boost recruitment, money,
Yep.
retention payments, money,
Yeah.
and pay increases, money. So
Yeah.
again, they're the first things that are mentioned in the summary document. So for me reading this, I wonder, does this again imply that the main focus is on pay and salary above anything else? Now, I want to ask you, Joel, if your school came back to you now and said to you, right, Joel, we're going to give you a choice. We're going to give we can take this day away from you. You can go back to your full 10 days a fortnight timetable as it was before, but we'll pay you an extra, let's say 5,000. Let's say £5,000. Right.
Yeah.
Let's just pluck a figure out the sky. Say an extra £5,000 a year. Would you take it?
No.
What about if I said what if I said it was 10? What if I said it was 10?
Oh, if you're sweetening the deal with 10. 10,000 I think is ridiculous.
But we don't know how much this cost.
That is true. That is true. Because it does have a cost that you could give to teachers. I don't think I'd take it. I really don't think I'd take it. I think I value my time more than money.
Yes. I would personally agree. And this is only because I think it also depends on the school you work in. Because if you're in a school where, you mentioned that you worked in an area, well, I've worked in Knowsley. I'm very familiar with the area that you work in now. And, there are areas where it is fundamentally tougher to teach in some areas. I'm really sorry. It just is. That's a fact.
Yeah.
So, and some schools and academy chains expect more than others, actually. And sometimes that's not healthy, but some schools and academy chains expect an awful lot from teachers. So if you work in one of those particular schools and you work in one of those particular areas, then that amount of money to make you sacrifice that extra day off would have to probably be very, very significant. And this is where the question that I would ask on the report that came out on Friday from the government would be, these. So let's look at the retention payments as an example. Early career payments of £2,000 to £5,000 targeted at schools as identifying as a high need for teachers, and levelling up premium payments of between £1,500 and £3,000 to incentivize.
Just on that point, I'm really confused by that point. So in areas that are deprived, right? That kind of is it. But one thing I can't understand is you already get your student loans paid for if you work outside a city in a highly deprived area. That's something I just don't understand. You already get that.
I didn't know that, Joel. I didn't know that.
So it's not in every subject. So if you teach science, computer science, and I think geography, you don't pay. You can get your student loan paid for. So I didn't know this until I'd worked in Knowsley for about 2 years, and then all of us in the department went, "Oh my God, have you heard about this?" And then one of the people in my department claimed back like £3,500 because you can backdate it. So if you work in one of the subjects, and I can't remember them all off the top of my head, go onto the government's website and it's called student loan repayment. Like it's already an incentive that's there. So the £2,000 retention payment isn't. It's not that much of an extra benefit because some people already get it, and I imagine that it's going to be based on your subject. It's not going to be for everyone. So that would mean it would be in maths, and they already get an retention bonus, and they can not pay their student loan, or it being science. And I don't think that's as much of a golden arrow as they think it is.
Yeah, it's also, to quote the report, it's targeted at schools identified as having a high need for teachers. Now, again, cynical brain on that that could mean a very high turnover of staff for whatever reason. Whether that be behavior, whether that be workload, whether that be whatever, right? When I see that quote, high need for teachers, there can be many. Obviously, every school has a high need for teachers, but there can be some where it's a ridiculously high need, and some of that can be because of what's happening there. So it's almost like saying, yeah, you know what, we'll give you, £2,000, but get ready for hell.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating, but and the
But
pay increases. Yeah,
I
go
know
on.
of other trusts. I know of other trusts that do that pay you just an extra amount of money, because obviously they don't have to pay you the amount of money that they if they're an academy, they don't have to pay you that amount of money. They can pay whatever they want. But I think it's Harris. Harris have, I think it's an extra £5,000. If you work for Harris, they give you if you just work for Harris. So yeah, again, that's already fell to individual trusts to make that decision already. Because I know there was a school near me in London that done that exact thing where you got an extra amount of money because you worked for that trust. So it's already decisions that have been made. So I feel like that report has just gone, right, what have they been doing across the country, and amalgamates it all together. But the problem is, and I think this is a problem of the current government we have, this is not a problem you can solve by throwing money at it. It's really not. And they seem to think that it is. And even that report, as I was reading it, mentions a lot of stuff about teacher well-being, and money doesn't fix well-being. Money can make it easier and can soften that blow, but money is not going to solve the problem of you working on a Friday night until 11 o'clock, or working on a Sunday and giving up that day. Extra money is not going to help. I can have all of the extra money in the world, but if I haven't got the time to spend it, it's not worth anything.
No, I mean, there'll be many, many people out there who would completely agree with that sentiment. Of course, there are others who are very much still on the side of, no, we just need to keep pushing on pay, keep pushing the pay up to a level where it's almost like, I don't know. I don't know what these people sort of are aiming at, who are on that line of thinking. I don't know where they'll sit there and say, yeah, I'm happy with the pay. I mean, the pay increases, £30,000 starting salary coming in. That's not a small starting salary. It may not stack up against, I don't know, like junior doctors or something. I don't know. Like, I think I did a comparison like last year. I don't know whether Joel, but
I tried to have a look at this. So again, the OECD collect all of this information about all OECD countries, and they looked at the starting wage and the end wage, so the maximum amount you can earn, and it's converted into dollars. But the starting wage is lower on average than places like France, but the top end is significantly higher. Like significantly high. Obviously, there's some countries like Luxembourg that pay like $100,000, which is crazy to me. But we do get paid more at the top end. I think it's about evening out the difference in different teachers. So you can have, and I think valuing time spent teaching is different to valuing the ability of the teacher. So, and again, this is obviously my opinion, but just because you've been teaching for 5 years versus someone who's been teaching for 10, they could both be good teachers, and you're paying them just based on when they started. And I think that's quite arbitrary. Just you get different values of teachers for different things. And I don't necessarily we should stick a value on a teacher and go, this teacher's worth 30, but this one's worth 40. I just think it needs to be fairer about how we pay teachers. That scale is good. The fact that a lot of schools have got rid of the fact that you have to be appraised to go up that scale. But like in my school, we automatically go up the scale. There's no appraisal process. But I think the payment system of M1 to M6 and the UPS and all that, I think is just overly complicated for no reason other than the fact that we've had it for years. I do think that deserves an overhaul of this is how much teachers are paid, and it's a significant amount that's good. And then if increasing the teacher and learner responsibilities, if you know that there's a teacher who's significantly good, who's able to lead on training, you have extra money that you can give to that member of staff to allow them to give them the want to be able to show their expertise to other people. I do think that system needs to be overhauled. It's really good that we're paid £30,000 when you start off. I think that's good. It's higher than the average wage in the UK. It is lower than the median, but it's higher than the average. But I think the whole system of how teachers are paid does need overhauling, and that's why I think the arguing for the increment, like just a couple of percent, and arguing over 1% or 2% of a pay increase, just simplifies the argument too much. And I think it needs to be we need more broader thinking about what it is about what teachers want from their pay, because it's clearly not working. Even when we're going, oh, teachers are going to get a 5% pay rise, or whatever the value is, you go up next year anyway. For a lot of people, you automatically go up. So you're getting a pay increase for the first 6 years. And when you get to 6 years, you're on more than the average wage and you're on more than the median wage. So clearly that's not what the problem is. The problem is clearly something else. The retention problem is massive. And I don't think money is what the problem is. I think something else is the problem. But the problem is that's more complicated and harder to fix.
Many will agree with you, including me, Joel. Many will disagree, but many will
Yeah,
agree,
of course.
including me. And the thing is, as well, it's interesting what you've just said. A lot of the pay rises that have come in have had to have been funded by need to be funded by schools, or at least in part by schools from existing budgets, etc. Right. So when I look at that, I'm like, why not? If that's something that schools have to do, then in my opinion, that should then be a choice for them to be able
Yeah.
to say, well, we know this school over here that has a 9-day working fortnight. We can give you this percentage increase, but we also have this alternative option if you prefer, and you can vote on it as a staff body or whatever the means are, as individuals, as a group or whatever. Your other option is a 9-day working week. We'll take that money that we would have to put into this pay rise anyway, and
Yeah.
we'll give you a 9-day working week. Now, it might be that some schools can just afford to do it regardless, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like that, like you say, there'll be bigger academy chains potentially that can just afford to do it. It'll still cost them a lot, I would imagine, but they can afford to do it. But there'll be others who simply cannot do it. However, if you're saying to a very small school, well, you've got, however many staff, not that many, and you've got to give all of them this pay rise and you've got to fund it out of your own budgets. If you then give them, the staff, the choice to say, well, we've got to pay you this money from our budgets, or at least part of it from our budgets. Would you prefer us to pay you this pay rise from our budget, or would you prefer us to use this to basically give you more time off?
I think it just needs to be more of a creative conversation. So
Yeah.
the 9-day thing, granted, there are some schools that do already do it and have done it for a while, but I just think it's I think it's just one of them. Oh, you go, oh, why don't we try this? And I think that's just been missing. And I argue that it's a problem of unions, and it's a problem of those who are leaders in education, and it's a problem of politicians where they just think that you can throw money at the problem and the problem will go away. But I think there just needs to be more of a conversation about what do teachers actually want. And I don't necessarily think that's just money.
This is it. And also, I've done shows on Teachers Talk Radio before about flexible working and the ideas around flexible working that have progressed so much, particularly since 2020. Things in the wider workplace have changed so significantly. Teaching is still really in catch-up mode, even to other areas of the public sector. But the public sector is going to have to catch up with the private sector when it comes to the way in which they're seeing working conditions, whether that be, and I think what's interesting as well is there'll be those who would argue, and rightly in some ways say, we can't offer remote working for teachers because they need to be having that face-to-face contact with the students. I get that.
Yeah.
But there are, like you've just said, there are other creative ways where teachers can literally have that time off, or work from home on PPAs, or just have more. And I think in every area there needs to be potentially a bit more of a cut loose approach. Like, let's stop thinking about the way things have always been done, and let's just start going, hang on a minute, what are we doing here? I'll give you an example. If a school spends a lot of money on an external CPD consultant, for example, and they spend a huge amount of money on that because that's what they've always done, versus, can we do something completely different with that money that would put the ownership for that CPD back on the staff, or just mean that CPD can be delivered in a different way, in a more cost-effective way, but we're actually going to give staff time off with that money, or whatever it would be. Tinkering with these preconceived ideas of where money needs to be spent or has to be spent. and some of this will come down to evidence, because, for example, that CPD consultant who comes in, there might be a school out there who says, well, we're using that when Ofsted come to visit. We're using that to say we had a consultant in who worked with us on XYZ, and they're this person, and you know who they are. Oh, yeah, we know who they are. and that's, but again, that's performative. That is you could argue that that's performative. So I do, yeah. What I'm basically saying to is, Joel, I'm agreeing with you that, I think there's a lot of people out there, including you and me, who would say, let's get more creative about how money is spent. Let's get more creative on what it's being spent on. There'll be some things within a school budget that are disproportionately so expensive compared to something else. Yeah, I've just given you one example. Yeah, go on.
There's one that pops into my head, and it always is supply staff. And obviously we look at supply staff when you're not well. But like tons and tons and tons of evidence suggests that when staff bodies in all organisations have flexible working, that leads to less sickness. So if this is a flexible working approach, which essentially it is, if this is a flexible working approach that can be put across the whole trust, then following the evidence, then that will reduce the level of sickness, and therefore that will reduce how much you pay in supply staff. But then you also have, when you need a doctor's appointment, that staff need to cover for that day. So you need to cover them and you need to pay for that. And some schools can rack up £2,000 a week. So I'm aware of us easily spend £2,000 a week.
Joel,
and you just think that is money.
I think
I am massively underestimating it.
I think you're under. I mean, if you imagine the average supply, let's say you get a supply teacher in, the agencies are taking such a massive cut from every single day. I think I spoke to someone about this, actually, a leader, fairly recently, and I think I'll have to look it up what they said, but I'm pretty sure they said like between 250 and 300 a day.
So I googled. So I posted about supply, and then someone had mentioned it, saying it's not as much as you think. So I googled it, and you can go on how much money local authority schools spend, and £500 million was spent on agency staff last year, and that's a 17% increase than the year before.
This is my point.
That's
How much?
massive.
And the other element of this, of course, is what those supply teachers are actually getting paid, because of course
they're not getting all of it.
Well, they're not getting never mind all of it. I mean, you imagine, let's say that a school pays £280, £270 for a day of supply. That teacher's going to get probably maximum, if it's general cover, they're probably going to get maximum 100 and maybe 150, absolute maximum.
Yeah.
Probably on average, they might get 130, 120. In some cases, they might even get £110 of 280 quid. So they're getting about half, less than half.
And this is I think that this is a conversation that is often spoken about when we talk about like the NHS and stuff like that, about like privatisation.
Yeah,
and
it's the
things
same
are being given to the private. It's exactly the same, because that money is going to a private company. It's going straight to a private company, and that is money that is not going to pupils in the classroom. I think one of them was like it's £1,000 per person in a local per pupil being spent on supply staff. That's just not fair, and that is not the way that we should be spending money. That money should be going primarily to the education of the pupil, not to a private company that is arguably, yes, providing a service, but it is not a service that's necessarily beneficial in terms of the amount of money that it costs.
I would be shocked that if any school that introduced the 9-day working fortnight, I would be shocked if it didn't have a major impact on their supply costs. I'd be absolutely shocked at the end of over say a period of 2 years. I'd be shocked.
The thing is, though, is that is difficult to predict, because obviously you can use your historic data about how much supply you have, but you don't really know how much money you're going to save. But even when you're just going, right, let's say we have what we call occasional days, so we're allowed to take occasional days as well. So if we want to go, one of the examples today was if we wanted to go to Glastonbury, we can request that as an occasional day and it's paid for. And if you've got childcare problems or anything like that, or a parents' evening or an open day at a school or anything at all, you have to pay. The school has to pay for that. They're paying for you to not be there.
How many occasional days do you get now?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's 3.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So
again,
I had
Joel,
the
there's been
same.
a couple of times I've faculty meetings built into the timetable. The
Yeah.
occasional days are 3 days that you haven't mentioned up to now.
So we also have something called a staff member. So we work in cycles of 13 weeks. We also have staff member of the cycle. So where all of the staff body nominate one teacher and one support staff to be the staff member of the cycle, and they get an extra day off as well. And that's staying next year.
Blooming heck.
I know.
I mean,
So
really?
it is a lot of positives, and there are stuff that we don't do that other schools do, but I do like the stuff that we do.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're always on Teachers Talk Radio, Joel, looking for balance, but I can't really see there being many teachers out there who'd say, no, that's not a very good idea. To be on one. Mikey's called in. Mikey, do you want to say something on this?
Hello, Tom. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Cheers. Yeah, I just think those are fantastic ideas, but when I speak to people who work in the private sector, friendship groups, they just can't get over the rigidness of the profession, and also the variance between like England and Wales. Like I'm really like envious of Joel, what he's saying there, in that like everything is just blanket the same in local authority areas. There's none of these sort of like 1 day off to go to a wedding or to go to Glastonbury, etc. And I don't see why they can't. Why isn't it a good idea? And coming back onto supply as well, it's a national scandal. I just can't understand why it's not been addressed. And we digressing here, but I just think that the amount of money that would be saved if teachers had a bit more time off would be quite significant.
Paul Caden, science teacher, great science teacher, has texted in saying, my old school had an exchange with a school in Japan. The teachers there could not believe the amount of contact time we have in England, and their hours were crazy. Marking demands were very different. For example, Paul's messaged in. What's Paul said? So I worked for 16 years, have my pay basically frozen for a decade, and someone comes in at year one, gets the same. Joel, what would you say to that?
Also, don't treat it as an us versus them. I think that's a really easy argument to try and go. I rather than thinking about you as an individual, think about the whole profession. And granted, it's easier to think about you as an individual, but think of everyone. Your job would be significantly easier if you had staff staying for long periods of time, forming them relationships with pupils. Your job would be significantly easier. The high turnover rate that some schools have just has a detrimental effect on every single teacher in the school. So anything that we can do to make sure that every teacher wants to stay in the profession is a good thing, and I think it'll be good for everyone, not just the one person who gets a lot of money on day one.
I mean, I understand Paul's argument there. It can be very deeply frustrating for an experienced member of staff like Paul, who probably feels pretty hard done by financially based on what's sort of happening now. So I understand that completely. I completely understand that feeling, and I can see why people in the profession will get frustrated with it. And on the flip side, Joel, I think you highlighted very well why. On the flip side, unfortunately, whenever you introduce a change in anything, there's always going to be someone who misses out on that change.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It is unfortunate.
Yeah, like if you reduce the prices of products in a country on particular goods, and then that person leaves that country and goes to live in another country, they'll have missed out on that product. You know?
It's just the thing. Like, one thing I would say is it is really easy when we talk about pay. So the argument when people at the bottom end got paid a 7% increase, the people at the top end got 4%. Like, I get the disparity. I really, really do understand that disparity, and it does happen a lot. When you speak about staff in schools, because of the variation in how long people have been working there for. But so many people leave teaching within the first year. So many people leave within the first 2. It's like 1 in 8 teachers leave in the first 2 years. That 1 in 5 leave in the first 8 years. Like that's significant. That's a significant amount, and that hasn't such a negative impact on a school, and that has a significant impact on pupils as well. And I think anything that we can do to make sure that the staff do stay there and steal values and want to give their time to that school, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, Mikey, I was wondering what's your current sitch? Are you are you still teaching somewhere? Has my sound gone, or has Mikey's sound gone? Maybe Mikey's sound's gone. Don't know. Joel, can you still hear me? Oh, yeah, I can hear you now. Hello.
Yeah, I'm currently on supply, so I've kind of got a dog in this fight, and I sort of sit there some days and watch as things are happening, and speak to people, speak to senior leaders, chew people's ears over a coffee, and I suppose I like to think I'm quite experienced for supply, but I've got a job to go to in September. I'll be going over to the dark side. So there'll be a lot more sort of free time.
Which is what?
The private sector.
As in like a private school or
yeah.
Okay.
So I've never done something like that before, but I just need a change.
But have they said to you going in there, is your timetable going to be different? Have you got more free time and all that?
I think it's quite similar due to where the school is situated, because they're in competition with some excellent state schools in the area, and that makes them in competition for staff as well. So they've got to match the terms and conditions of these excellent state schools, and rightly so. But I was going to say, I think it's, people can be caught up in pay, saying, "Oh, why should someone younger get paid when I didn't get paid?" But we got to remember that it's a very expensive society we live in at this moment in time. And I would like, people who are 10, 15 years younger than me to be able to buy a house, and be able to buy a house in the catchment area they live. So they're not commuting, they're not like, an hour and 10, an hour and a half driving. People are spending 3 hours on the motorway every day because they can't afford to live where they work.
Do you think, though, Mikey, that if what Joel has outlined was offered to you, like, let's say, for example, this job you're going into now in a private school versus what Joel has outlined there, do you think you'd be more tempted by that within the state sector?
And I probably not now, because it ticks some boxes that I want to tick with regards to timetabling, lesson sharing, subject sharing, which wasn't available in the state sector. It's a bit of it's a 75% science, 25% games. Something we wanted to do and tick boxes for. There's obviously some benefits in, like, free food, free gym, etc. But I do think that the rigidity of the profession is killing staff, especially I think sort of older staff who just are in a rut, and I suppose a day off every 2 weeks would be excellent for people. They could look to do things and it would freshen them up. People could go away on holidays a little bit cheaper, or go away for the weekend. They could organise things, as I said, like Glastonbury was mentioned. But gone are the days where like things happen on a Friday and a Saturday. It was just, Premier League sport is on different nights of the week. Our concerts are on different nights of the week. It's challenging having a life and being a teacher. People say, "Oh, you get loads of time off," but during term time, fitting things in is a challenge, and I'm sure people would agree.
Joel, any thoughts on what Mikey said there? I mean, interestingly, Joel, someone has actually DM'd me while we've been talking, and they've said don't mention sort of who they are or the school they work in, but an interesting one from what Mikey was saying as well, that they work in a 12-day a fortnight boarding school. So 9 out of 10 days looks really good to them. And they said staff are stressed and regularly burnt out. I mean, that's an interesting sort of, because that is the private sector, but you have to remember that, a lot of those private schools do have Saturday schools and sort of, extra activities they do after school, requirements in terms of getting embedded within that school community and all that sort of stuff. So, yes, I don't know, Joel, whether you've got any thoughts on what Mikey said on there.
I have my own personal opinion on private schools, and in some cases they work, and in other cases I don't. But I do think that a lot of private schools do offer like the benefits that Mike's just mentioned then, where you can have like the gym, for example, stuff like that. Like some schools do have their own gym, but it's not the same caliber as the type of gym that you'd expect. And having swimming pools that you can use, like I know a lot of private schools do have swimming pools that are open to staff. but I do think we need to focus more on what can bring people into the state sector. I do think we could look at what private schools do, because obviously there are some things that private schools do that are more enticing. Like I do know a lot of private schools that have like off timetable, completely off timetable, where you do like a fun activity, or you do like a debating club, or anything where you run a club, or you run something for the culture of the pupils. I don't know some state schools that have tried to do that, but I do think that's one thing that you can bring in, get teachers to do a hobby that they enjoy, so they're not just doing it in their own time, they're doing it as part of the time that they have with pupils. I do think that's a good idea.
So you mean like let's say podcasting, like you do that as a club, but within the timetable? Is that what you?
Yeah, so in a school where I used to live in London, in Hillingdon, there was a school there that on a Friday they finished at 11, and then all of the teachers ran something, and the pupils chose what they wanted to go to in that time. So then for the following like 3 hours, they got to do different activities like a film club, a drama club, and all that type of stuff. So they were fulfilling the extracurricular stuff of the pupils without it actually being a favour for the staff.
I think that's great, and as long as the sort of interest was as flexible as possible, which I'm sure it was, like, I think, again, I mean, I can't imagine there'd be many teachers who would say, well, that's a bad idea, because you're able to do something probably outside the box, that you're in like a running club or something. I don't know whatever it would be. Something. I'm guessing it would need to be something semi-constructive. Like, it couldn't be like it's Football Manager club, and we're all going to play Football Manager for 4 hours. But I think I get you. Like, that's another really.
But that is one thing that we can look. The private sector do that quite a lot. Where they offer significant amount. They have obviously got more money per pupil, but they can offer that significant amount of extracurricular activities to build the culture of the pupils. That I do think in state schools we just don't have the money nor the facilities to be able to do so. So we could look towards what the private sector do and increase funding towards the other stuff that they can learn in education that isn't just what the curriculum states.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming towards the end now. If anybody wants to sort of in the last couple of minutes now call in, then please hit the button in the bottom left. Anyone who's listening live, then definitely hit that mic icon and get involved in the conversation. Share your thoughts on the 9-day working fortnight that Joel is going to be embarking on from September. If not, in a few minutes we'll be wrapping up the show. But obviously, I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank everybody for getting involved on the texts. Massive thanks to Joel for coming on, Mikey for calling in, and everybody else who's been involved in any way. Of course, Nathan behind the scenes has been manning the Fort Teachers Talk Radio, so thank you to him as well. Just before we go, it'd be a really good time for me to just give a final shout out to our sponsors on the show as well, which are John Catt Educational and also Reading Solutions UK. If you want to find out more about either of those, you can visit John Catt at johncattbookshop.com. You can benefit from 20% off any John Catt book by clicking on the link that's in the space, or by just using the code JCTTR2425 at checkout for any number of books that you would like to purchase from John Catt. So definitely check them out. And with Reading Solutions UK, they've got a free reading conference coming up. If you want to find out more about that, just visit them at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk and just click on, I think there's an icon that says Reading Plus or Reading Conference. You can click on there and sign up for free to that. So it's been a great conversation, and I think I'm going to be thinking about this for days, Joel. I don't know about you, but it's just sort of got my head whirring in terms of other things that schools could or should be doing. Maybe this should have been happening a long time ago. Maybe it's too little too late a little bit, but certainly it's happening now, and I think that's the most important thing. So massive thanks to everyone. I'll be back next Monday evening. Take care and good night.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.